An Englishman, German and American meet in Singapore and apply French law to decide whether a company, say a car manufacturer, can do business in Australia. It sounds weird, doesn't it? Especially since their decision will impact thousands of Australians. It will affect the price of cars, it will affect employment, it will have environmental consequences, and so on. This sort of thing happens all the time in arbitration, and you'll never hear about it, because arbitration is completely private. Arbitration is just an arrangement, normally between two companies, that any disagreements they might have won't go to court, but will instead be decided by people they have chosen, at a place they have chosen, and under a set of laws they have chosen. This means that the laws applied might not have any connection with the community actually affected by the decision. In its own way, arbitration isn't that different to Dick's proposal in King Henry VI, aside from the whole killing thing. It allows companies to choose the laws that apply to them so that they can maximise their profits. Now, wider community interests in things like the environment, the economy, public health or otherwise, depend on the law for protection. This is because they aren't the types of matters that private companies will normally prioritise. They're just an extra cost that doesn't benefit them. So when these companies get to decide which laws apply to them, as an arbitration, it's these community interests that get forgotten and aren't protected. My research explores how arbitration can be changed so that wider community interests are acknowledged in it. I begin by looking at how courts in Australia, England and the United States decide cases in a way that reflect these interests. This provides a starting point for what is needed in arbitration. I have found that while courts in each of these systems share the same basic aims, the practices they actually adopt to give effect to these aims are different. By comparing their approaches and finding the common ground between them, I identify the practices necessary, at minimum, to ensure that wider community interests are protected, whether in courts or arbitrations. My research so far indicates that this requires four things. The cases are made open to the public, that there is a means of having important community interests represented in them, that reasons for decisions are published, and that there is some way of overturning decisions that are incorrect. The problem is that these practices are at odds with the core benefits of arbitration. My research attempts to find a balance in all of this and suggest a better way for arbitration to be conducted that implements these four practices while keeping its advantages. Because there are upsides to arbitration, it's just that as things currently stand, they don't outweigh the harm it causes to everyone else. Thank you.